14% of the non-NES teachers who want to return to an NES school. I think 14% of the non-NES teachers who have filled out the survey want to return to an NES school. So this is just an intent to return, so don't go buying property off of this information, because it'll change, and sometimes people don't reveal their intent till the end of the year or change their minds. But I think overall that's pretty impressive data at this point in the year, with over half the teachers filling out their form already. That's a pretty high return rate, guys, even with the caveats that I just mentioned. So that's the good news. I still have some other good news, but also some concerning news, and that's the ISD efficiency report. So look, we spend a lot of time, you ask me a lot of questions about schools, what's going on in schools, which is the proper focus. We are in the business of educating kids. So we talk a lot about instruction. We talk a lot about the NES model, the curriculum. Those are important things, and we've been focused on that, and we've been, I've talked a lot about achievement, we talk a lot about instruction, and all of that. At the same time, I hope most of us understand that we can't have a school system without good supports from central office functions. We have to have a transportation system that serves kids well to get them to school on time. We have to have a maintenance system that fixes the broken toilet so the toilet doesn't stay broken for a week or 2 weeks. We have to have people who repair our schools but also clean our schools. We have to have people and systems that really respond quickly to work orders. Otherwise, our schools won't function as well. So the notion of central office supports and back office systems and the infrastructure we put in place to support our kids and our teachers and our schools, hugely important. So even though this is not about what's happening in the classroom. That's why it was important for us, when I got here, to start looking at the infrastructure, the systems, the central office systems. I emphasize that word a lot because it's not about the people failing or not doing the right things. People will operate within the system that you have in place. I always say, when big things go wrong, first look at the system, because that's how people operate. So if you put a bad system in place, then why would you blame a person for following that system? So we don't blame our drivers, bus drivers, for a transportation system that's broken, and it is. So I charged my team, the central office cabinet and department heads, to look at their systems, whether it's HR systems, how we recruit people. Why does it take so long to recruit somebody? How many people have to touch one recruitment? How many people are needed to hire one person? I asked the transportation department to look at our bus routes, our ridership, all of those things that go into a transportation bus system. And you guys also know I've been out at the bus barns and looking at how that operates. Charged finance, look at their purchasing systems and contracting systems, purchase service processes, all of those things, to see where we are efficient or where we're not efficient, and on and on. All of these things had to be reviewed, and over the last 6-7 months, we uncovered a whole bunch of things, some of which are in this report. And I'll give you some specific examples in a minute, but you're gonna, if you don't already have a copy, you're gonna get a copy. Please take your time with it. And here's why this exercise that we put our cabinet through, and we put the biggest pieces in this report we're calling efficiency report. 9 different systemic challenges that face the district that we're working on fixing. And the reason why we put this in a report and we're working on it so diligently right now is because, well, 3 big things. Number one, if we don't fix these systems, we can't be as efficient and effective in supporting our schools. So it's not just about saving money, it's about making sure we get our kids to school on time, making sure we do fix the toilet when it breaks on time, making sure our buildings, as old as they are as cool as they can be in the summer and as warm as they can be in the winter. That's why we need efficient systems. The second thing is money. Our inefficiency actually costs us a lot of money. One of the things I know is that teachers, you don't pass out things during your presentation because kids start looking at the pieces of paper rather than, but that's okay. I'm sure you all can handle it since you're adults, you're not kids. But the second thing is about money, right? It's if we have broken systems, it will cost more. If we are inefficient, we're inefficient in our use of money. We need to make sure that we can prioritize our resources and spend the money wisely and efficiently so we can put more money in the classroom so that we can raise teacher salaries. You all have seen how the NES schools in particular have some of the highest salaries in the nation, much less the area. They beat the area by far. How do we pay for that? Well, we pay for that partly by being way more efficient. But the third thing, which is not really spoken a lot in our profession, the third thing is if we want to build a high-performing culture in our classrooms, then we have to have a high-performing culture in the district. You cannot have a high-performing culture in the schools and then have such inefficiency or low performance or low expectations in the rest of the district. We are urgent in the rest of the district in support. We are efficient in what we do in the rest of the district to support better. And so those are the 3 reasons why this efficiency report and the concept of the efficiency report matters. Again, it's about being much more efficient and effective to provide support for kids. It's about being efficient and effective so we save money, so we can put more money into our classrooms and our teachers. And it's about maintaining a high-performance culture. And so I hope you get a glimpse or capture the flavor of it in the efficiency report. Just a couple examples. There's several examples in this report. And we did try to stay higher level. I mean, there's 100 challenges, specific incidences, but that's not what this is about. And this is not about any one school, any one driver, any one department. It's about how we operate as a system. But let me give you some specifics that are in the report. You're going to read that we bought buses we didn't need. We spent ESSER money. How many buses? 175 buses at about $20 million a year ago, as recently as that. That's a lot of money spent when we could use that money in other areas. That's one thing in the report you're going to find out. But the real question is, how was that process? What was the system to look at the buses you need, what you didn't need, why you would purchase it, what was the mileage and usage already, why did that escape notice to where we, HISD, bought those buses? We spent $26 million in overtime last year. $26 million overtime. And we say we don't have enough money for teachers or to raise salaries. Is that the right amount of overtime? I can tell you it's not, but that's a question that needs to be answered, right? Your system either allows for that much overtime or it doesn't, and we need to fix that system on how we monitor overtime, what we say qualifies for overtime, and how we hold people accountable for their regular jobs versus overtime hours. Another thing that's in the report is the financials. We got $1.2 billion over 3.5 years in this district. What is the return on that investment? First of all, that is a question that should be asked now, but it should have been asked a year ago, and it should have been asked at the beginning on how would you measure the use of $1.2 billion in ESSER money. What are you going to get for your buck? What bang will you get for your buck? That's a systems problem. That's not a person problem. That's not a individual problem. That is a system that is not geared towards looking at metrics and assigning goals that are SMART goals, achievement goals, or outcomes for the use of funds. We spent $139 million of that $1.2 billion on recurring salaries, on salaries that are recurrent, on people paid by money that is now stopped. ESSER ends this summer. So now we're kind of in a position where we have to do something about that problem. You will recall, for example, in May of last year, in May, the district had a presentation by the last administration that we're going to reach a fiscal cliff in the end of the 24-25 school year. Remember that presentation? The chart is in your pamphlet or in your report. That's not a chart I created. That's a chart the last administration created. Fiscal cliff by the end of next year. What did that mean? What did that mean? It meant that we would reach under $500 million fund balance at the end of the 24-25 school year, or sometime during the 26-27 school year, if nothing changed. But no plan to fix anything. Instead, the district put $139 million in recurring expenses, did a 9% salary increase 2 years ago, also increased stipends like crazy over the last couple of years. So we just went on a spending spree and had no plan to, do something about that once ESSER money finished. A plan that should have been written 3.5 years ago, by the way, not in May. Now we're going to have to deal with that, but my point is that's a broken system when you have a financial system that doesn't look at goals and outcomes and ties money to the actions. That's a systemic problem. Again, try not to blame any one person, any one department. That's a systems problem. By the way, most districts have that problem. You will not see that here. When the budget comes out, you will see the action plans that the district have, the key goals that are all measurable, tied to budget and money. We're going to fix this. Next year's budget will be over $850 million fund balance, regardless of the challenges they left us with their own fiscal cliff. We're going to avoid the fiscal cliff, and we're going to do it right away. And you'll see that when we present to you the budget in May. It'll be approved in June. That's it. Those are just some of the examples from the report. You'll see other things. You'll notice, too, that it focuses on systems, not actually examples, but systems. Who's got the first question?
Before that, our chief of communication wants to. Superintendent, I was just going to clarify, just in case anyone is unfamiliar, ESSER is the federal COVID relief aid.
Yeah, sorry. So ESSER monies is the money that the district got, and everybody else did too, on to regain learning loss from COVID.
A little bit of question, Margaret?
Is there any consideration with all this added emphasis on responsiveness and things like that for raising the pay of any of these much valued support people?
Yes. I can't tell you exactly what it will be. We're going through the compensation manual as we speak, and we'll be releasing that soon, the compensation manual. And so the answer is yes. We get it. Our support staff have not been, in some cases, paid competitive salaries. And so we need to do that as well.
What level of surprise or validation was there on maybe your preconceived ideas when you said, let's take a look at this, and you see these results?
Yeah, so I've been in several districts. I've been, and I've talked to several colleagues. Some of the things I saw were normal dysfunction, if I can put it that way. In other words, they're common problems in big districts, in urban districts in particular. However, I think the level here was higher than I expected. So I wasn't totally surprised, but there was some level of, wow, this is worse than typical urban district.
Dominique, do you have a question?
Yeah, the release mentions a morass of curricula and programs that were not linked to any particular standards of quality. I see some references to CTE and some references to high quality instruction, but I was wondering if you could give specifics about that curricula and programs, because I know some parents are going to see that and wonder, like, what about the magnet program at my school?
Yes, so I don't want to talk about any one, vendor or textbook or resource, because that's not what this is about. But I can tell you this: there were well over 30 different curricula in reading in this district last summer, and I can tell you that some of them are not tied to science of reading research. So that shows you just how the system of how we provide high quality instructional materials was really not in place. To be fair to the district, and I think it's in the report, the district started to address it. You will recall that the district in 22-23 school year had a pilot program using Amplify products, and in a handful of schools, Carnegie and Eureka curriculum for math. So there was already a knowledge that we can't have this many different curricula and do right by kids with regard to high quality instructional materials.
Asher?
Yeah, so for next year, is there, and I haven't read the report yet, but is there a ballpark estimate of how much these efficiencies will save?
Yeah, it's really hard to say it just like that, because there's savings in other areas too. But in the end of the day, you can look at it this way, I think. There was a prediction of fiscal cliff if nothing was done. We're going to end up next year's fund balance at $850 million, probably this year at $870 million. In order to increase the salaries at the NES schools, then we have to find efficiencies in the rest of the system. So you can kind of look at it that way. The increase will be offset by efficiencies.
Right, I guess I just think, like, probably anyone trying to get their head around, like, the scale of this would probably be looking for generally about how much in dollars this is saving. Like, is there any sort of, like, are we talking tens of millions, hundreds of millions? Where does this land?
Yeah, it's a difficult question to answer, because no matter what answer I give right now, it really depends on how you add up the the savings. Some things are not a savings. Some things are going to cost more. I'll give you an example, right? I can't answer your question. I can tell you this. We're not going to reach a fiscal cliff because of the efficiencies we're going to save. I can also tell you we're adding 45 NES schools, higher salaries, right, in those 45 schools without lowering the fund balance below 850. When the other administration was projecting, reaching somewhere around $500 million fund balance by the end of next year. So we're going to be able to pay for that. In other words, we have to have efficiencies to do that.
Sorry, one last
Follow-up.
follow-up. Like, I guess one way of asking it then would be, do the efficiencies outlined in this report fully offset the spending in order to reach that balanced budget, or are there other cuts to come?
So that's a good question. Here's the answer to that question. I want to make sure that I don't give the wrong impression. These are system changes. They cannot be solved overnight, and they won't all be solved this year. Yes, we're going to do a lot to address many of the things that are in this report, but these are system problems that developed over many years, if not a decade. And so, or in some cases, probably more than a decade. They have to do not with just inefficiencies, but decisions that were made many years ago. I'll just give you one example so you can hopefully follow me. And it's not in the report. You want a more efficient transportation service? Then you have to locate your bus barns in the best place possible for efficiency. If you were starting from scratch, would you put 2 bus barns on the very edge of the district? Answer is no, you would not do that, because you miss half the radius of the routes that you can send out and the kids that you can capture within a 5-mile radius of the bus barn as the bird flies. So you see what I mean? That's a decision that was made, I don't know, 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. Somebody made that decision then. We're living with the consequences now. The problem would be not to do anything about that and just say, well, we got to live with it because the bus barns are where the bus barns are. So does that save any money? Probably not, but it's going to be efficient, and I can't change it overnight.
I have 2 questions. The first being, will any of these changes have any effect on how campus-level budgets are determined for the next school year?
Yeah, thanks for asking. That's not in the efficiency report. So in that sense, no. But there will be impacts on schools that are in a positive way. For example, one of the things we're going to do systemically is push supports to the schools. For example, if you have a maintenance hub where people have all your maintenance workers go to, and you have to travel to and from a school over here, you can see how inefficient that is, especially if you don't bring the parts with you. That's a system problem. So we're going to push the supports to the schools, and so there will be hopefully a positive impact on most schools for these efficiencies.
And then you mentioned, I think it was $26 million in overtime last year. What are your plans to, I guess, revamp that system? Like, will teachers be at non-NES schools still be eligible for overtime? Will they be expected to work overtime without pay?
Yeah, no, this problem is not mostly about teachers at all. It's about our central office staff, our hourly employees mostly. And we're doing things systemically to make sure that we have proper recording of overtime, proper monitoring of overtime, but also making sure that we look at a system of how we use purchase services. So I'll just ask you a question without giving you the answer to show you how we're thinking about it. Overtime. We have grounds maintenance folks doing a good job, but working in the system we have. There's over $1 million of overtime there, plus $2 million of purchase services for the same job, groundskeeping. So let me ask you, how many grounds overtime hours do you need? Grounds maintenance overtime hours is appropriate. The answer to that question is what we're getting at when we talk about systems. It's not just a matter of cutting overtime hours. It's a matter of understanding what the purchase service company does, how effective our grounds people are working, and what is the right amount based on a system, we call them service level contracts, for grounds maintenance. So it's a complicated issue, but that's why it's systemic.
Garza, do you have a question?
Oh, he asked what I was going to ask
Okay.
about overtime.
Dominic, you have a follow-up question, right?
Yeah, so turning back to kind of the first effort to address inefficiency in central office, in July you said there would be 2,300 cuts. The district recently acknowledged that it's been 1,900 so far. So I was just hoping you could speak to why there's that 400-person gap.
Yeah, I don't know the numbers you're talking about. I know this. It's very complicated when you have 27,000 people. We cut central office staff quite a bit last year. I think by 2,000. Some of those were vacancies. We said it at the time. And some of those are positions. But you also have to understand that there's a process of transferring. We were creating departments. And so that's a lot of people. The bottom line is this, though. We decreased the size of central office to be more efficient, and that's just the first wave, and that's what we did back in the summer before we even had a real look at systems. So we're going to continue to do that. It's a complicated process. One of the reasons why the numbers are so hard to decipher, especially from the outside, Dominique.
Well, I mean,
let me finish the thought. One of the reasons why the numbers of employees are hard to decipher is the systems. For example, in June, we discovered 990 people on our rolls that no longer worked here. I think that's in the report. And only a handful were getting paid, which is another problem, but it's 27,000. I'm thankful that only a handful of the 990 people who no longer work in the district, who were on our records of working in the district, that's a systems problem, guys. Again, that's not a person problem. And so, did you count the 990? Did we count the 990? Should we count the 990? So we are cleaning that process up. You no longer have people who retired, resigned, left long ago. Some of those people were on the rolls for 5 years. What kind of system is that keeps people on the rolls for 5 years and can't discover that the person that left 5 years ago is no longer here? That's a systems problem. That's also why it's very complicated to understand in a district that is dysfunctional how many people are actually showing up at this department on any given day.
So just to quickly follow up, I understand that it can be hard to decipher, which is why when I got the records I asked the press office. And in July, you said there would be 2,300 positions cut. After I presented the records, it was acknowledged that y'all have cut 1,900 so far. So I'm just wondering, with that 400 position gap, if you have any reasons why those cuts weren't made.
And I don't know, Dominique. You're trying to learn the HR job from the outside, and it is very complicated, and I don't have time to teach you the HR job.
Cuts happened or didn't happen.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, it's a difficult process. It's not an easy thing like that. You can't just say, are you going to cut overtime hours? Are you going to cut positions? The bottom line is we're going to be more efficient. We're going to save dollars. What does it matter whether it's 2,000, 2,100? I will get the mission accomplished by cutting the people that we need to cut that are not as that that are not as, are, where the department doesn't need as many people. That's what we're going to do. We're going to find those efficiencies.
Go ahead.
KTR.
Oh, ABC, sorry.
That's okay. I'm new. Okay, I'm just kidding. If you could, please, you said that department heads have been looking at this for 6 or 7 months. When did you start to see the issues, the inefficiencies, and have you waited 6 or 7 months to make changes, or how quickly have you made changes? And for some of these issues, like you mentioned, the millions of dollars of buses that were needed to be spent, is there still a way to recoup some money, sell those buses, so that you can still get some of this money back?
Those of you who were here last summer were quick to remind me of the problems that that if I hadn't noticed, you guys noticed. There were lots of problems right off the bat. I mean, it's hard to miss challenges we had, for example, in HR with recruitment last summer, or how we paid people, some of our purchase services. Those were noticed right away. And did we start addressing them right away, which is your question? Yes. But look, let's take transportation. Buses are already running for summer school. The bus hubs are where they are. School was starting in August. There's very little that we could do to change the bus system coming in June. You know, I was just getting familiar with where the bus barns are. So did we try to do what we could do as far as making sure that we had enough drivers? Yeah. To making sure that we emphasize calling in when you get to the school. We made little adjustments like this, because before they didn't call back when they actually left the school after a drop-off, and we did that. So the answer is yes, we did as much as we could, and we're doing that all the time. Some of these things you're going to read, we're doing. Give you an example, service level agreements. Service level agreements is where you identify how long it takes to do a certain task, whether it's mow an acre of ground, change a part in a toilet, et cetera, et cetera. We're already well on our way to having service level agreements. We didn't when I got here.
And what's the total dollar amount of wasteful spending that you found?
So that's the same question.
Well, he asked how much money you may be able to save, but I'm just curious to know if you got the total number of wasteful spending.
Yeah, that's like saying what's on the other side of that coin. But I don't know is the answer. It's not all about savings, guys. There's 3 things, right? One is about efficiency. We're not going to save probably a dime on fixing that toilet faster, right? We might, but it's hard to say. If we get that school's toilet fixed, that may be because we have a more efficient use of the workers that we have, and we may not save as much money on transportation as I would like. So it's about both efficiency and savings. So we will save enough money to pay for the reforms that we need to put in place.
What, quick question, sorry. What motivated the report? What made you guys realize, let's start looking at these things? I know there's not a total number of wasteful spending, but what made you realize there's a significant amount enough to release a report and start working on this?
Yeah, I think both my team, the community that's interested at this level of items that we have to report, not just about the classroom. I think it's important for everybody to understand, my team included, just the extent of the systemic change that we have to undergo. So they understand that we looking at the problems that are systemic, and we're going to address them over the long haul.
We don't have much time, and we have one more question with NTD. They are waiting for.
How about these 3 people here? Yeah.
So I asked this question for children. I saw a book in a public library in California. the book encourage a boy think himself as a girl. So I got very shocked. So may I know, is there the problem? Because you mentioned a high quality instruction book in our HISD, and do you find the problem too in this community?
No, I haven't encountered that problem in this community. When we talk about high quality instructional materials, really we're mostly talking about curriculum. That's a term of art in the profession, and it's about math books, language arts books, science books, and things like that. But the answer is no. I haven't encountered that issue so far in HISD.
Can I ask
Asher?
just one
Yeah.
more? Yeah, because about 5 years ago, there was a legislative budget board report on inefficiencies in HISD. This isn't the first time that folks have looked at that, so I'm just curious why, like after that was already kind of looked at, and I know the school board took some steps to try to resolve it, like why this now?
Yeah, so the Legislative Budget Bureau report that came out, I think, in 2020 or 2019, does mention several of the things. Ours looks more closely at the systems behind it and also what to do about it. So what you'll see in our report is why it matters and what we're going to do about it. Whereas while the LBB report has some recommendations, several years have passed since then. We're closer to the problem, and the suggestions that we have to fix things are more systemic.
Right, because there's, I think, was like $250 million in 5 years, which wouldn't match up to the cost of the reforms.
That's right.
Superintendent, we're gonna get one more question.
Okay.
HISD has had a rather storied history of corruption involving how it deals with its contracts, some of staffers, things like that. Did you find any of that when you were doing these systems checks? And if not, will this system do anything to sort of try to stop this from happening in the future? Because you have years of history here at HISD with very inventive minds.
So we didn't find any overt corruption. Okay, so I'm glad you asked the question, because this is not about that. This is not like an audit or investigation of wrongdoing. That's not it at all. It's about how effective we can work to serve the kids. I started by saying, and I'll end with saying, look, this is, in the end of the day, the mission is about the kids, right? In the end of the day, I have a pretty clear charge. Raise the achievement, close the achievement gap, and prepare kids for the year 2035. That's pretty specific. We also have this special ed charge, right? And then the governance charges for the board to work on. So that's pretty clear. But the whole point of this is, if we don't work on this, we can't do this as well. We can't accomplish our goal as well. So the answer is no, not criminal. But let me also suggest this to you. If the system is broken, there is opportunity for inefficiency, you might even say intentional inefficiency, right? If you don't have a service level agreement, then I might take 1 hour to fix the toilet. I might take 2 hours, I might take 30. Is that criminal? That's not criminal. That's the system being a problem. So we're going to fix that so that people work maximally effectively.
Thank you. We'll be here.
May I ask one more thing while you're here, sir? One more thing.
I'm looking at these guys because I get in
We
trouble all
have
the
a
time.
full schedule and superintendent have to leave.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So will we get this as PDF?
Yes.
Thanks,
Great. How are you?
Superintendent.